Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I am Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, your radio flagship home of the Dallas Cowboys. Joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. You can now hear him on the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105.3 The Fan as well. You can also hear him on the Dallas Cowboys pre- and post-game show as the co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. Brian, how are you doing today, man?
Doing excellent, Robert. Getting ready for this Thursday night game. As you mentioned, long day for us in the radio world when you have shows and then pregame shows and then game and then postgame shows, but would rather have it no other way. This time of year is very, very exciting with everything that's kind of going on with trying to determine playoff pictures and seedings and, trying to find a way to get another win.
My biggest question for you heading into this game, have you reconsidered me being able to sit next to you for the entire game?
No, not at all.
Damn it.
No.
We're going to wear you down one of these days. That's what I want for Christmas next year.
They say there's a reason in the press box that it's like a working environment, and it's not the Bobby stand up and like pontificate why that play worked or why the play didn't work. And why the quarterback threw the ball well there, Broaddus, and, hey, make sure you talk about him this way next time. So, no, you're not sitting or, you can continue to go in and out of the press box like you do because you don't sit down. I've never worked with somebody. No, you don't.
I sit with Jane. I'm on the other end.
Don't lie, Bobby. Don't lie.
I do.
Don't lie, Bobby.
Well, I'm going to wear you down one of these days, and you're going to allow me to sit next to you for the whole game.
These folks that follow our podcast, they're very loyal. They're wonderful human beings, and they really need to know that you are a pain in the ass in the press box.
That's fair, but I still think I should be able to sit next to you. But
you get bored because what happens. Jane has had enough of your BS.
Yes, yeah.
You have to. So then you wander into the TV area, grab a little bite to eat, then kind of figure out, who else could I bother?
Yes.
Dak scrambles to his right, throws a 51-yard pass to Noah Brown. Oh, hey, Brian, as you're standing literally on my right shoulder, not seated.
Perfect time.
Seated. That's at Louisiana Education. And so you're standing there and you're like, see that throw? Yeah. See that throw?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to give this quarterback crap.
And then when he throws an interception, I'm on the other side. I'm not.
And then he takes a sack, and then you kind of go back to the little candy area and kind of pick through the candy. Folks, Bobby Belt as an insider. I'm just going to give you a little insight real quick, and then we'll go to the content.
Right.
Bobby as an insider, I don't know how much of the game he really sees.
Oh, I see all of it, baby. All of it. Now I will be fair. I'm gonna pull back the curtain on this aspect of it. I very rarely am completely caught up live with the last 6 minutes.
Oh no, that's a problem for us.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and see, you guys get to go down to the bar area for post game, so you at least have a TV. Like a lot of times when we're standing, I don't have like a TV or whatever, or like you go out and you kind of like have a bad angle at the tunnel or whatever else. So the last 6 minutes, you will often see. I've had people go, "Why are you so quiet here when that bad play is made?" Well, oftentimes it's because I can't even see really what's going on. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it.
No, you're absolutely right. We from Zach Wolchuk and I. From the press box, have to leave at the 6-minute mark to get downstairs. So you got to catch the media elevator, which can be a little hit and miss.
Mm-hmm.
So they've done a better job of if you get out there with 6 minutes to go, they're going to get you down to the field. And then now it's the walk where you walk in between plays. So you stop they have these monitors. You watch the play, walk. Watch the play, walk. And then you get into the Miller Lite Club, and that's where you're able to see the last 6 minutes of the game.
So for this particular game, which you will not have to suffer with me in the press box, it is in Nashville. In fact, you're probably done for the year. with having to suffer with me in the press box because it looks unlikely that they're going to get home field advantage. But who knows? We can still hold out some hope. But for this game specifically, you've got the Titans coming up, and there's a lot of questions, Brian, about how much the Titans are going to even be playing some of their guys because this is a game that really has no bearing whatsoever on their playoff seeding, their playoff chances. It's all about next week. So why not work in some rest here? But to your what stands out to you, I guess, without knowing exactly who's going to be available and who isn't, what stands out to you about the Titans heading into this game?
That Derrick Henry is for real. I mean, there are times where we've seen him in playoff games take it over. We've seen times in regular season games where he's taken it over. This is a physical downhill runner, and we had Tank Lawrence. We do our DeMarcus Lawrence show every week, and yesterday on Tuesday we had a chance to ask Tank the question of about tackling a guy like that, and he's like, "Listen, you just gotta give it your best shot. You know, don't if you hit him up high, you're probably going to bounce off or get a stiff arm, and so you'll see a lot of guys. And watching the tape this week of the Titans, I mean, Jalen Petrie, who we both love coming out of Baylor, who the Houston Texans safety, who will tackle anybody. It doesn't matter. Henry, Jim Brown, Walter Payton, whoever you want to play, he'll tackle.
Christian Okoye,
yeah. I mean, he'll tackle Barry Sanders. He'll tackle all those guys. And, man, there were times where you could see the first two times it's hit and hit and hit. And about the fourth time, he was like, okay, I'm just going to throw my body at him and hope that he just runs over me, But that's their game. That's what the Titans are now because they really don't have the ability to throw the football with Willis. They just don't. And that's going to be a problem for them. And that's why if you talk to people around the league, and, I have a friendship with Doug Peterson and some others around in Jacksonville as well, what they're thinking it may be that Josh Dobbs is going to be the quarterback that they see in that Week 18 game. So I don't know if you'll see Dobbs get some action in this game to try and get ready, or you will see Willis just go on and be that guy for this game, and they're going to keep Dobbs under wrap until then. There's people in Jacksonville that, again, talking to them about how they think they might play this one against Cowboys, they think they're going as a preseason game. They think that they're going to rest guys that are hurt, Bud Dupree, guys like that they got that are banged up,
right?
And try and get them in that 10-day window, try and get their team as healthy as possible in order to get in that Week 18 matchup, which is really for their season. The winner of that game wins the division, goes on. The loser has the 16th draft pick or whatever it's going to be.
Which games did you watch of the Titans?
Watched the last one that they played against the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
I watched them play. Oh, geez, who else?
Was it all the recent stuff? Because I'm just
it was. I'm curious
if you had a chance to see them at all earlier in the season and maybe identify like what the hell has gone wrong with this football team.
Well, I wanted to watch the Green Bay game, which is the last victory they had. I mean, they beat Green Bay the week after Dallas lost to them.
Mm-hmm.
So Green Bay beats Dallas, and then I want to say, I mean, it was the next week. Hell, it might have even been a Thursday night game. I can't understand why the Titans are playing a couple of Thursday. Maybe it wasn't maybe it was
it was Thursday against the Packers and then Sunday against the Bengals 10 days later.
Yeah, so I mean, it's weird that the Titans have got two Thursday night games, right? Is that kind of strange?
Not the norm.
But anyway, so yeah, I was trying to think of the games. It was just like I say, it was going through my mind because I was like 2 or 3 games. I was taking pieces of each game because I was trying to figure out what they were doing if I could see Willis play. You know? and it was like kind of hit and miss with him being in that lineup. So, but yeah, the one I wanted to watch the last one for sure, and that was the Texans game, and just to kind of see how they match up there.
Now there is a lot of there are guys who are banged up. We mentioned that maybe this is a week that they give a Bud Dupree the week off. Jeffrey Simmons has missed a couple practices here. Maybe he misses this game. Derrick Henry is somebody who returned to practice on Wednesday or on Tuesday. But he was listed as a limited participant. He wasn't really committal about if he was going to be able to play. Let's assume it's Willis and Henry. When they head into this game against the Cowboys, Willis is obviously a mobile quarterback, but what do you see in terms of their offensive game plan? Is it read option stuff? Is it more whenever Willis is in there, it's stuff designed for him? Or how do they use the running game with Henry and Willis?
It's more of like they'll get under center and hand the ball off or toss the ball is what they do, or shotgun handoff. It's not anything. Now, this could be something that, do you want to show a little bit of a different wrinkle to Jacksonville? Do you want to play a little bit more with the read option stuff? Willis is a 50% passer in the games he's played.
Yeah.
He hasn't been accurate. This is surprising to me because when you watched him play at Liberty, there were times where he threw the ball very, very well.
Yeah.
And was very accurate. You watch the Ole Miss game and how deep shots down the field. And, he basically carried that team in that Ole Miss game. And it was going back and forth because of him. So I'm surprised he's been as inaccurate as he has. The thing that if this turns into, if he ends up, I think he's going to play. Of course, I think he's going to play. I could see more running with him, more sweeps, more power runs, more trying to kind of find his way that way. The Cowboys, let's be honest, against the Eagles, they've given up some passing yards. They gave up some passing yards in the Houston game.
Yep.
They've given up some passing yards here lately. They're trying to fix the pass rush hasn't been there, and the secondary's kind of been a little bit, off because they're trying to play different combinations. So if I'm the the Titans, I try and run the ball with Willis a little bit and some design runs, maybe make some easy throws for him, maybe try and find a way to get the tight ends going, get Burks, get Woods. People have got the ball out quick. Again, that's something I asked Tank yesterday. I go, Tank, I'm watching all 22, and you guys are running twist stunts, and before you guys even get to the twist point, ball's out. And he started laughing because that's really kind of been the case. I think that's how teams are going to play Dallas from going on. And we saw it against Philadelphia. We saw it against Houston. We saw it against Indianapolis. Teams are not going to let Dallas front dictate the game. Now, another thing Dallas has had to deal with, too, is they haven't got the holding calls. Like early in the year, they got some calls where teams were put in long yardage situations, and they've been able to tee off.
Yeah.
We've seen some games here lately where both sides have not been penalized all that much. And so now it turns into, okay, if they're going to let them hold, they're letting them hold for both sides. And, the guys like Micah and Tank, and those guys are getting held off the edge, and they're not getting the call, and then thus they're not getting teams backed up where it's 2nd and 18 or 2nd and 20 or whatever like that.
Now, the Cowboys, from an offensive perspective for them, they head into this game. I think there's a decent chance there's no Tony Pollard this week. And look, if this was not if it wasn't a short week, if it was a playoff game, if those sorts of things, I think he in all likelihood goes. But I think just given a number of factors, and then with the playoffs coming up, I think there's a good chance that Pollard sits this one out. So you're already going to be hampered in the run game there. Tennessee's got a very, very good run defense. and their pass defense has actually been awful. It's one of the worst in the NFL. You're coming off a game against Philly where when you were heading into that game, Philadelphia had allowed no more than 239 yards net passing all year to any team. Tennessee, on the other hand, has allowed more than 239 net yards passing in all but 5 of their games this year. And you look at since the bye, week 9 against the Chiefs, 422 yards. Week 13 against the Eagles, 386. Week 14 against the Jaguars, 368. Is this a game where Dallas can continue some of that momentum in the passing game from Philly last week, you think, and say, this is the way to attack the Titans. Let's try and beat them through the air?
Titans aren't going to let you run the ball. That's for sure. And their front now, depending on who all plays in this game, DeMarcus Walker, I think, is a really, really good player.
Yeah.
Tart, good player there at nose tackle. We talked about Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons, I love Jeffrey Simmons coming out of Mississippi State. Really, really.
Cowboys did too. Cowboys liked him too.
He was a guy that he lost his first year in the league because of some injuries that he had to deal with. Autry is like an outside linebacker rush guy. They play run defense really, really well. And so if the Cowboys are going to want to move the football, I think it's going to have to be through the air. And I don't have a problem with that. But I will say this, though, Bobby. If all these guys for the Titans play and it's a challenge to run the ball, I'm going to try and run the ball. And I'm going to tell you why. I think you're going to have to establish that you can do it still.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be some games where it's throwing the football is going to be tough and running the football will be tough as well. And I kind of feel like that there's a couple of opportunities here to try that. Now, we'll see what happens if Philadelphia loses to New Orleans this weekend. Now Dallas has got to still play. Dallas has to go try and beat the Commanders.
Right.
The Commanders completely shut down your running game. The last time that Pollard had a bad game rushing, it was against the Commanders. So, to me, there's a little bit of that mind game going on. Can we run the ball against a good front? The next 2 weeks will be that test for you going into the playoffs. Because I feel like you have to have that ability to, we figured some things out here. With Tyron Smith playing right tackle, him and the combination with Zach Martin over there, how the tight ends work with Tyron Smith over there. Can we get going again? Smith played really well last week, but can he keep it going? If I'm the Cowboys, I don't just completely abandon the run. I try to run the ball if this front is as good as I think it is and establish a little bit of that thought that, okay, we were able to kind of pull it together against a good group and get it done today.
Now, Brian, as we wrap up this segment, you got a pick for me on this one. I'm going to go Dallas 34-21. I think that you've started to see some cracks in Tennessee's defense. They've struggled against the pass all year, but they're starting to give up more points after being pretty stingy as a scoring defense. I'm only going 21 because I don't know that the Cowboys still have the run defense figured out, and there may be a chance that Derrick Henry can gash you a little bit. But what are your thoughts here on the score for this one?
Yeah, I went Dallas 27-13 in this game. I don't think you're going to see Henry play, and I don't think they can throw the ball well enough to score a lot of points. They might get very fortunate, a couple of field goals, maybe a touchdown, something like that. But I got Dallas 27 and the Titans 13.
You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, outside of this game, there's already a lot of looking forward, I think, to the playoffs, because I think a lot of people have already written off the division as, look, that's unlikely. And it's not impossible, as we know. But I think the likeliest scenario, everybody agrees, would probably be that you'll get Tampa Bay. It's not a slam dunk, but that's kind of the outlook, I think. So you've already got fans. We got a lot of questions today about Tampa Bay in the mailbag. You've got fans looking ahead, asking about, hey, how do you fix this and that over these next 2 weeks? Maybe use these as preseason games of sorts. But I think there's a question here about a couple of positions and stabilizing what the rotation is and what it is that they want to do heading into the playoffs. And so, Brian, let's take a look at the couple of rotations that I think they still have to establish. Let's start with right tackle. Now, I don't believe there's much of a rotation there anymore. I think that's Tyron Smith's job. Jason Peters played it about a third of the time against Jacksonville. But ultimately, this past week, it was all Tyron Smith, despite Jerry Jones and I think Mike McCarthy even saying, hey, there's probably going to be some additional rotation still. Is that a position that you think is settled at this point? And we didn't get a chance to talk before you saw the film. So now that you've seen the film, how do you think Tyron played in that second week at right tackle?
I think he was just really okay. I don't think it was I know there was some time in pass protection where he was off balance. His footwork was a little off for him. Hand placement was a little poor. I think Hassan Reddick, he might be the best defensive player they have for the Eagles. I know, and they got a lot of really good ones. But when you watch Hassan Reddick play, he gave Tyron Smith some fits. And so I think with Tyron, it's no more rotation. It's about every rep that he can get at right tackle, keep giving it to him. If you want to put Jason Peters like they did on the goal line, heavy formation next to Tyron Smith, blast everything down inside and run the ball off the edge for a touchdown like they did, I'm all for that. If you want to do that in some short yardage stuff, I'm all for that. Every rep that Tyron Smith gets at right tackle is a good rep for him. So no more rotation over there at right tackle at all.
If Tyron Smith were to go down, we know his injury history, things like that. But if he were to go down, Jason Peters looked okay on the final drive against Houston, struggled against Jacksonville. Would you prefer Peters just stay on the left side and go out there with Josh Ball if you need to, or would that be Peters for you if right tackle came open again?
I would rather lose and die on that hill with a Hall of Fame offensive lineman there. You've already shown the willingness to move a Hall of Fame left tackle to right tackle. I would be willing to do the same thing again. I'm not gonna let my playoff aspirations die with Josh Ball. Now, if there's a way to incorporate him to give Peters a rest, the problem is Peters is a 40-year-old man,
right,
playing a violent game, and for one series he was really, really good. In the Jacksonville game, you mentioned it, there were some struggles there. So to me, I'm going the route I'm going to die on that hill with Jason Peters at right tackle if that's the case.
Next question here, not so much a rotation, but maybe a level of involvement. And that's with T.Y. Hilton, who had a couple of big plays, impactful plays against Philly this past week. He drew the savvy penalty on Darius Slay. And then he beat Slay and beat the safety over the top on that go route for the big 3rd and 30 conversion. Given the limited amount that you saw of him, do you think it looks as though, hey, I think you can get more out of him? Or do you think his role here is pretty much just a spot player, somebody to come in, be a fourth receiver, and stretch the field occasionally?
No, you could get something out of him. This cat's ready to play. This guy's ready to go out and make plays. I mean, hit the route running, the quickness, the experience. Get him on the field as much as you can. Bunch formations. It doesn't have to be third down. First, second down. Find ways to get him on the field. He's a smart guy. He's going to know what you're doing. He's going to make big plays. We saw it the other day. He's on the field twice, and he makes two of the biggest plays: a 4th and 7 and a 3rd and 30. Come on, man. Yeah. This guy was born to play in the NFL. He has for a long time at a very high level. It's very much similar to what you have with Odell Beckham. Those guys are born to play in big moments and big games. And, T.Y. Hilton probably not had the overall success that maybe an Odell Beckham has. But, man, I'll tell you what, there's some times where he has lit some defenses up. And if you're going to catch lightning in a bottle, like my scouting buddies like to say, this might be the great opportunity to do it with him. I get him as involved as much if that means taking Noah Brown off the field or whoever you have to take off the field to get him involved, by all means, give it a go.
Now, he played 12 snaps on offense. I know you went back and watched the tape. On the reps where he wasn't targeted, did you notice if he was out there as a decoy at times, or were there times where he was did he look like he was running the full route tree, or were they basically sending him out there to go downfield?
I think that, to me, I don't know what their full route tree is for play calls and stuff. And so it's kind of, you're saying, well, you kind of assume that he's doing what he's supposed to do with his job. But I think there were some opportunities to target him a little bit more. But man, you got guys like, with CD, the way he was playing and stuff like that. It's hard not to get him or Schultz, those guys. There's just that little bit of trust. But you talk about trust, throwing a ball to a guy on 3rd and 30 and then throwing the ball to a guy on 4th and 7, and he comes up big. I think that the plays that he's going to get, the opportunities he's going to get, if it's 12 plays, 15 plays, we could very well see 4 to 5 targets in those opportunities or more with the way he plays. Just watching him run routes, the quickness, it's all still there in front of him. That is not a slow or sluggish player that's kind of just hanging on and hoping to make a play. That guy legitimately can go make plays for you.
Now, who does that come at the expense of? Does that come at the expense?
I don't care.
But would you like? Are there certain times where you're okay with, like, if it's 2 receiver set? Are you okay with Lamb and Hilton out there? Are you okay with Hilton pulling Gallup off the field? Because obviously you wouldn't want him to take CD off the field unless we're talking about potentially max protect 13 personnel type of looks where he's just out there to run the fly route.
They took CD off the field on the 3rd and 30.
Yep.
He wasn't on the field. They put Turpin on the field to try. I mean, they were trying to complete the play. I mean, that's kind of like Dak Prescott. I'm never going to die on a play here. I'm just going to keep doing it. So I kind of feel like, though, to me, I get it. They need to get Michael Gallup going some way, somehow. But you're also talking about a guy that we saw, like, say, the other day, and who has a history of making huge plays. It means 1 or 2, 3 less reps for Gallup, but they turn into 1 or 2 catches. By all means, do what you have to do.
I was looking up something interesting this week in regards to Michael Gallup. He has 412 targets in his career now. He got in the NFL in 2018. Since 2018, Brian, there are 55 players, some of them backs and tight ends too, but 55 players with at least 350 targets. Out of those 55, during that 5-year stretch, Michael Gallup's 55.3% catch percentage for his career is the worst of them all. Is that the fact that Michael Gallup hasn't had a 60% catch percentage year yet, is that about connection with Prescott? Is that about they generally are running him on deeper routes that are going to be lower percentage completion type of throws? Or is there just something amiss in Michael Gallup's game that's making him a little inefficient?
I think with Michael Gallup that I don't think he's the cleanest receiver when it comes to catching the football. I think there is some time, and I'm not talking about a ball thrown in the sun and stuff like that. I don't know if it's always just very natural for him catching the football. And so when you watch him on misses, when you watch the drops, or why does it always look like he's caught between catching the ball with his hands and trying to use his body?
Right.
There's always that. There's that. Some of these receivers you see, they look so natural just catching the ball, just out in front, boom, 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 catch the ball. With Gallup, it's like it's contort, it's move, it's body position, it's whatever you have to do. And I don't know if he makes some brilliant catches. Those balls that go up that are vertical balls for him to go get, him to come down with feet in bounds and all that stuff, that touchdown he had the other day. I think the touchdown the other day, by the way, Dak was throwing the ball to Pollard in the back corner of the end zone.
Really?
And I think Gallup just happened to be there. Because
Wow.
if that ball gets through, Bradbury's going to intercept it in the corner of the end zone. But Gallup saved you. Gallup catches the ball, tap, tap, gets feet down. It's a touchdown. That's the kind of stuff that Michael Gallup can do. It's maddening to watch him. You're like, I've never seen a guy that has that ability to contort and move and catch and then look so caught in between his technique on a normally thrown pass, like low adjust, just at the chest. I think there's some fight in him. I think there's some confidence fight or lack of at times. And that knee injury, they could talk about that stuff, but for them not to throw that 50-50 ball to him down the sidelines, in that Jacksonville game, that probably has to do with him having to go up, him maybe coming down, and something to do with that knee. But he just, at times, he just doesn't look really confident and natural catching the ball. But then there's other times where he makes some of the most brilliant catches you'll ever see. It's a strange thing with him as a wide receiver.
Last position here or rotation that we really got to figure out is this idea at corner. And obviously they told us there would be a competition there. They indicated that Kelvin Joseph would be involved in that. Against Philadelphia, he was not involved at all. He had 0 snaps on the day, and so he wasn't on defense at all. He had special teams work, but not much more than that. Mackenzie Alexander played 14 snaps in the game. Nashawn Wright played 38, so he got the bulk of the work. In fact, Mackenzie Alexander was in coverage, I think, for of his 14, only 7 of them were in pass coverage. Nashawn Wright was in 30 coverage snaps. So how did you think Nashawn Wright and Mackenzie Alexander both played? And do you think we're going to continue to see rotation and competition, or do you think, given this past weekend, it's going to be, all right, we're rolling with Wright and Bland and Diggs moving forward?
Yeah, I think they've kind of figured this thing out. Mackenzie Alexander, we've talked about it a bunch on this podcast. My guys around the league that studied tape, watch him, and then watching him play, he's a slot player. That's his job. He's a nice little slot player. But what you figured out by playing right on the outside and Bland on the inside, you've got better size. You got your team will tackle better. Also, not only I think will they cover better, I think they tackle better. I think that Sean Wright's a really smart kid. I think he's got some really, really good understanding of what he needs to do to be successful. And for him to get the opportunity to do it, I think it's a great thing. But I guarantee you going forward, they're going to play Bland on the outside as a starter, and then when they go to nickel, they'll kick Bland inside and bring Wright on the field. That is the best combination for the Dallas Cowboys in the secondary right now.
Before we move on to the mailbag, I'm just curious here because you mentioned what they're asking of Bland now to be outside, kick inside, do all these different things. How different would this season be if they didn't have Deron Bland?
Oh, man, seriously, 5 interceptions, right?
Yeah.
This kid, he plays with such an understanding of where he needs to fit. I think very early when he got opportunities to play, in preseason he just played, and I think and you saw him in practice, he just played. And then he got an opportunity to play during the regular season, and I'm like, this doesn't look like the same guy because he looked timid, a little kind of withdrawn. And then all of a sudden, the first interception and things start to click for him a little bit. And then the Commanders game. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I see. And now that positive energy and momentum that he had, technique and all that came back to him. After that, he's like, man, maybe I can play in this league. And he has. He's been you got to give the Cowboys a lot of credit. And I know you know this, they were on him very early, very, very early about his ability. And I guarantee you there are a lot of scouts around the country for these NFL teams. Their pro guys are going, what did we think of Deron Bland coming out? Where do we have him? And obviously you didn't have him high enough. And so, yeah, what a really see. Sometimes when you make picks, and Deron Bland, if Deron Bland was the second pick, if he was Kelvin Joseph pick, we'd all be going, "What a great job!
Yep.
What a great job by these guys! What a tremendous job by these guys!" And now you're in a situation where you're looking at, with Bland being a fifth round guy, you're going, man, what a great pick. But if Joseph was the fifth and Bland was the second, you'd probably think a lot differently about your group.
Absolutely. I think that changes the perspective. It's funny how those labels, your draft label, change perspective on the level of play that you have. You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for the Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. And what do you think? Should I have a Dean Julia question in here?
Why don't you lead one off? Go ahead and lead
All
it
right,
off.
let's lead it off with a Dean Julia question. How important will Dak's legs be in a long playoff run? His legs were incredibly important against Philadelphia, picking up 41 yards rushing. But how much of that aspect of his game needs to be present for them to have success in the postseason?
Huge. Running quarterback is a devastating part that a defense now has to deal with in the league. You look at the Eagles. Eagles average 3 yards a carry without Jalen Hurts in the lineup. When Jalen Hurts is in the lineup, that's 50, 60, 80, 100 yards right there. The fact that Dak was able, Dallas running the football, you would say, man, what an awful day. Not really an awful day. They kept running it. They kept trying. But Dak's 41 yards makes it look better. So, yes, very important going forward.
Next question here from Troy Saul. He says, what is the difference in the run defense before the Cowboys traded for Jonathan Hankins and after his injury to when he was actually playing?
Better toughness on the edge. You're getting much now. The thing about it is, and I've said this, the great thing about having guys like Bland, Wright, stepping in there, Jay Lou was, I'd say, a decent tackler.
Yeah.
Anthony Brown, maybe not so much.
No, Jay Lou will get in there though.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, you've got guys like Wright, and you've got Bland, and you've got Wilson, and you've got Curse, and Hooker to a certain extent. You can mask having one bad tackler like a Diggs in the secondary if you have guys that can tackle elsewhere, and that's why the run defense. I think the edge has gotten better. Now, I'll tell you what, a guy that plays 4 or 5 really good snaps for you a game is Carlos Watkins.
Yes.
But Carlos Watkins plays better than Bohanna right now. It's just, you watch the tape, he's a better player. But Bohanna has moments, but not like Carlos Watkins has. They need to get Hankins back, though. They need that big body in there. And until then, and also having Leighton Vander Esch in there helps too.
Yes.
So I think Vander Esch is the thing with Clark. I mean, I feel like that Barr is a good run player, much better than a pass defender. Teams have figured out how to get him in pass coverage, and I don't think that's necessarily a great thing. But with Barr, Clark needs to have a little bit better step up and take on and make plays, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned not just the way that Jonathan Hankins can eat up space and occupy gaps and those sorts of things, but it's also the way that he can occupy blockers from getting to the second level and keeping linebackers clean. So there's definitely a big boost to having Jonathan Hankins in the lineup and what he does for you. Next question here from GC. With teams getting the ball out quicker, which we talked about earlier, is there an adjustment that can be made? It seems like the stunts are a bit longer to develop, which is what you're talking about.
Yep. Nope. Just straight rush. Don't twist. Just go straight rush. Tank, Fowler, whoever, Armstrong, straight rush. The twist games are really good to try and confuse when you got 4, but they might have to bring some more pressure with blitzers. Let Micah just go try and win the edge. Let Micah try and go inside. Don't run him on the twist. Because like I said, Tank, I brought it up just from watching tape. I go, Tank, you guys run twist stunts, the ball's out. Like I told you, he started laughing. He knows. He
Yeah.
knows what's going on. They all know what's going on. So I'm not running any more twist stunts. That's not going to be something I hang my hat on. The straight rush, twist maybe, but you can run twists when you're in a situation where it's got them in long yardage and stuff like that, where that play has to develop a little bit more. But I'm taking the twist game out.
And another question about the pass rush from Anthony Flores. Would the pass rush be more successful if Micah moves to linebacker part-time and have Armstrong and D-Law play the edges? So I'm guessing more of the role we saw last year where a lot of what Micah did was blitzing from the linebacker spot as opposed to just lining up at the edge.
I would take Micah Parsons, and my main thing, to the point of the question, I would think about rushing Micah Parsons more through the middle than I would the edge. It seems like to me, I mean, the tackles, they got really fortunate the other day, that they lost Lane Johnson. On that final drive, Fowler got home on the fourth down, which affected the way that Gardner Minshew threw the ball. So, you got to find where these guys are that can't block. That's going to be priority number one. If there's a coach, and Jerry Jones talks about it, they got 30 coaches. One of the priorities is figure out which one of these offensive linemen can't block and which is having problems, and attack that guy with Micah Parsons.
Next question here from Jake. We know the issues at cornerback, but could we see a personnel switch at linebacker and safety to shore up the defense going into the postseason, i.e. moving Donovan Wilson to outside linebacker, giving Mukwamo more time at safety?
No, I don't think so. I don't
Doesn't
think
do it. How did Luke Gifford play?
Luke was okay. I mean, he's just, Luke is going to stand in there and he's going to be able to run to the ball and stuff. He's going to be a little bit of a liability when they run at him. He was having to fight blocks, but all these linebackers are having to fight blocks. That's the problem. They just will not play Jabril Cox. They just won't do it. And
why is that?
I have no idea. I really don't.
Is it just is he that bad in their opinion in the run defense?
I think so. Well, okay, I shouldn't say I think so. I think there's a factor of they don't trust him with assignments. That's not me asking anybody.
Right.
But that's just Brian Broth's opinion. Don't tag coaches or
yes.
Cox. I'm just telling you, my opinion is that he's not playing because I don't think he knows what he's doing. And coaches this time of year will not put you on the field if you don't know what you're doing. That's just my opinion.
In some instances, the Cowboys don't have a choice right now because I did notice a couple times. I don't know if you did, Brian. Did you notice there were two separate instances I remember, and I know Gifford didn't play a ton. Did you notice Gifford having to get Damone Clark into his spot a couple times?
Threw him across the formation.
At one point, right when the snap was like, go.
Grabbed him by his jersey and slung him to his
because there would have been nobody there if he didn't move to. So it's going to happen with young players. You just need Leighton Vander Esch to get back. That's what you need. You need Vander Esch to get back as soon as possible. Last question here from Three Moons, Brian. What is Brian's dream press box roster? Since I'm not part of it, who is your dream press box roster, Brian? Who do you want sitting next to you, flanking you, and being around you at the press box?
I really enjoy when the NFL uniform guy sits next to me because you know why? He's never at the game. They have a seat for the NFL uniform guy and the uniform police guy, and he doesn't show up at the games. So me personally, I don't have a ideal because to me, I would love to have former coaches sitting next to me. That way, if something happened in the game, I could go, why would you do that? Or why? But see, that's the whole idea of the press box. You don't talk. You don't do anything but watch the game. You don't stand up and go get a plate of food and then eat behind me while I'm sitting there watching the game. And then you don't get up and say, oh, well, look what that guy did. Look what that guy did. And then you go down. I see what's going on, Bobby. You got two seats in the press box. You got one with Jane Slater, and then she hates you so much that she sends you down to our end. And then we hate you so much, and then we send you to the food area where the multiple banks and TV are, and you can grab a meal, look at your phone, and bother somebody else.
There you go. And then the cooking people shoo me out of there. And then I have to go downstairs. And then that's
Bobby, just admit it. You don't like sitting down. That's
no, well, there is that aspect of it. I definitely get fidgety and I can't just sit down. But I will say that given your standard of you're supposed to not talk in the press box, I can tell you who your dream team is then on your left and your right. It's going to be John Machota from The Athletic and Todd Archer from ESPN. Those two will put their headphones in and look ahead. Two
pros right there. They know the drill. They're not like standing up like, oh, jeez, they threw the ball to that guy. I'll tell you, there are guys in the press box down on that radio side that have to analyze every play. And trust me, I was in the league 13 years. I don't know everything that's going on in the league. I can't tell you everything that's going on in the league. I try my best. But my man down there at the other end is analyzing every play.
Yeah, I know it, Brian. Well, one day next year, guys, I can't wait to tell you guys about me spending an entire 2023 season next to Brian in the press box. Whether that's where my seat is assigned or not, I'm just going to go over there and you
do anyway, Bob. You do anyway. You just stand up. Because again, Jane Slater has figured out Jane needs you, but Jane only needs so much of you,
right?
And then when the times come, like when Jane's trying to like watch the game and she looks over at you and you're like messing with your phone, talking to somebody about what's going on, she's like, why don't you go down and bother Brian? And then you come down there and bother me.
Exactly. I just make the rounds of bothering. That does it for us here on the Love of the Star. We will not have another show for you before the Titans game. That's why I picked it today. So hopefully we'll have something for you here later in the week after the Cowboys and Titans play. Maybe have a better idea by then of what's going to happen with the Cowboys playoff matchup. Until then, we will talk to you guys later.